Hello, my name is Emily Neuman, and I'm a graduate student at Grand Valley State University. Today I'll be talking about my preliminary findings on my Chapter 1 thesis research entitled Star Wars, Phenology of the Aquatic Invasive Species Starry Stonewort in 2 Michigan drowned river mouth lakes. Starry stonewort is a green macroalga native to Europe and Asia, but is considered invasive in North America. This macroalga is an aggressive competitor in aquatic ecosystems that, once established, forms thick monotypic meadows that can negatively impact native macrophyte communities, but little is known of its impacts. The purpose of this study is to record the timing of the peak biomass of starry stonewort in Pentwater and Muskegon Lakes to aid in the management of this invasive species and document the phenology of its growth over time. To accomplish this, 3 sites in Pentwater Lake and 1 site in Muskegon Lake were established for biomass sampling. Within each site, samples were collected by destructively harvesting all macrophyte and macroalgae from 6 random quadrats every other week, starting in June 2020. And here's what that quadrat would look like. After collection, plants are then processed for both wet and dry weights in a plant press to establish growth curves of starry stonewort. A variety of water chemistry variables are also collected monthly, along with temperature and light data loggers that are located at each site, documenting data at every 15-minute intervals. For our first preliminary results for Pentwater Lake is Rich's site. On the graph, the wet weight of starry stonewort is color-coded in the blue, and the dry weight is color-coded in the orange. The time is located on the x-axis, and the wet weight is on y1, and the dry weight is on y2. Starry stonewort started hitting its accelerated growth the latest compared to the other sites, which occurred around July 29th. Following it reaching its peak around August 26th, and then we see a rapid decline following that peak. We predict that this peak could be due to the thickness of the native Najas guadalupensis stands that we were seeing the last time we went out on September 11th. But you can see a little bit of starry stonewort peeking out, and here is a thicker mass of starry at Rich's site. Our next site for Pentwater is Bush's site. Similar graph components here, however, we are seeing a different growth curve for starry stonewort, where we see a slow growth in the beginning of the season, and then it really starts to take off around that July 15th time, reaching almost in a plateau event around August 26th, and then tapering off. We think that this plateau event could be due to the thick monotypic stands we are seeing at this site. In the beginning, starry stonewort was sparse and patchy, with mostly sand in this quadrat located down here. However, on September 11th, starry was about 3 meters in height, almost touching the surface. So we predict that starry doesn't really have a whole lot of space to occupy here anymore, which represents the plateauing tapering off on the graph. And you can see in this image how thick starry is currently. The last site for Pentwater is Mike's site. Here we are seeing a very different growth curve of starry compared to Rich's and Bush's site. Starry stonewort started growing around July 15th. However, we are seeing a couple lag phases in its growth around July 29th and August 12th, and then a slight increase after that. We predict that this lag in growth could be due to the thick, diverse native plant communities exhibited here, reducing the accelerated growth of starry stonewort compared to the other 2 sites on Pentwater. These images on the right represent some of the native stands we have been seeing throughout the growing season, and then a thick stand of starry stonewort. Lastly, the 1 site in Muskegon is located down on the bottom right. Muskegon starry stonewort population started growing a little bit earlier than Pentwater's site, near that July 8th, following what seems to be a peak event around August 5th, and then a sharp decline after that peak event. Earlier in the season, this site was occupied mostly by native vegetation as well as some larger stands of starry stonewort. However, following that peak event with the decline in biomass, these images represent what we are seeing currently, where there's small patchiness of starry stonewort with a lot of sand throughout this site, and then some native plants sprinkled in. To conclude my talk, next steps in this journey include comparing the finalized growth curves with water chemistry and temperature and light data loggers, as well as the overall biomass weights of starry stonewort and other native plant communities we have collected, and finally presenting our study results to lake managers to inform on different management plans going forward for this invasive species. I would like to thank the funding sources I received to make this research happen, as well as a special thank you to everyone involved in my research, including my lab, Brooke Keck, for helping me out, and the Pentwater Lake Association members, I would also like to thank Grand Valley State University and the Annis Water Resources Institute for providing me with this thesis research opportunity. Thank you for your time and listening to my preliminary results.